me and Pastor Jan, and we were just in the beginning of COVID, and so everything was shut down. We had decided that we were gonna have most of our services outside, and so we're going out in nature and filming all of our services. And so mine was filmed at a river in the mountain. And so I was seated next to this like rocks. It was very pretty, and I had shorts on. I had this shorts on. I just got my collar for my very first collar, and I had my shirt, my black shirt on, and a collar, and it was so uncomfortable. I was like, oh my God, why am I wearing this thing? I mean, in my brain, I'm just like, I shouldn't fall in this water because I cannot swim for the life of me, and I probably will drown. It wasn't even that much water, but I was thinking this. And I start preaching, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this in the middle like of a sentence. And he says, no, you know, just breathe and just do your thing. I'm like, do you mind if I just like free flow this sermon? I basically preached without really following my script. But at that moment, I felt like it needed to come from my heart, that sermon. And it was a lot about fears and how fears sometimes paralyze us and stop us from just crossing something as simple as a river to just go over to the other side. In 2000 is when we first became official refugees. I moved from my country, Democratic Republic of Congo, and it was a lot of political issues. My uncle, my late uncle, who was very involved in a lot of human rights stuff, kind of just got in trouble with these politicians. So our entire family had to like move to Uganda, all me and my brothers and him and his entire family. As a kid, it was just like, we're going on a trip. It didn't feel anything other than we're going on a trip. It's going to be a fun trip. And, you know, that lasted 15 years. And then you don't know the language. And you want to play with kids, you know, and you want to go out and play with kids. And none of the kids know what you're talking about. Or just like, none of the kids want to play with you. And those were the most difficult moments of that part of growing up. There's 4 of us children and my mom, so there's 5 of us living in a 1 living room bedroom. It was good. Again, I think a lot of like childhood things for me were good because I had everybody. I had my cousins in the same space. I had my mom in the same space. I had my uncle right over there. My uncle was we loved our uncle. One of my favorite memories with my uncle, he would like in the evening, he would sit us outside. There's a candle and he has me on his lap and my other cousin, Marisia. And then all the boys were like seated down and he starts making us like, show me your talent. What talent do you have? And so like my brother, he was like, he could move his one like chest and just does and so like everybody was showing like their different talents and I didn't have any. And so I'm like, I don't think I have any talent. And he says, sure you do. There's a movie that Mr. Bean had done. He could move his ears, right? And so I figured out that I could do that. I moved my ear, my one ear is shaking and my other ear is shaking. And he's just like, that is the most amazing thing I've seen. And I felt like so validated. I was super happy. He was such a great uncle. I loved having him. It was a sad day when we lost him. I remember I was home and our aunt comes like running over and she's like crying. Marisi is crying, my aunt is crying, and I'm not. I'm just like, what is happening? What is going on? And I was 8. I don't know why I didn't connect that he was dying. Maybe a year later is when it hit me that he was gone for good and that he wasn't ever gonna come back. Yeah. I feel like I have a lot of rich memories with him. Life is very precious, and I think to live in a life that you don't recognize that is missing out on a lot of things. I think the biggest insecurity for any refugee is to be in a country that you always know you're an outsider. At some point, someone is gonna say, you don't belong, you need to leave. During those years, we would interview for different countries, and sometimes those countries would reject your case, and they would say either they don't have space, or they just don't feel like your case is priority. Sometimes they would wake up at 4 in the morning to go to the offices and just wait to hear back, wait to just receive. We had given up. We're okay, this is never gonna happen. And so we're kind of starting to figure out different ways to just live life in Uganda. And my mom gets this call from one of her friends. Your name was posted on the people who USA is going to interview. We're like, what? Our interviews happen, and then everything starts happening, and I'm like, oh my God, it's actually happening. Our mom and our little brother come, and me, Thierry, and Yannick stay behind.
They came in October 5th in 2016, and they were here for 3 months. They moved out after Vela's oldest child, Thierry, finally arrived from Uganda, so it took 3 months for him to get here. They were supposed to, when we got the call from Lutheran Community Services, they were supposed to be here for about a week, and then all the other children were going to supposedly come within a week of when they arrived.
But the problem is Trump became president during that time, and Trump plans on closing the borders. And me and Yannick are still in Uganda. We know that if the borders are closed, then we're going to be stuck there for a much, much longer time.
So it was about 2 weeks, and we got a call from Lutheran Community Services, and they said, no, we're still trying to figure out why the delay, but could they stay longer? We could find another place. And by then we'd fallen in love with them, so they said, no, they can stay here.
It was like having family here.
So Mom out here was already in connection with Kathleen, and Kathleen and Joe helped connect them.
I went down to Representative Derek Gilmer, and wow, within days, they were here.
We were among the last few people to cross and come. It was the most relief. I remember my heart just feeling so light once we came.
Vela was almost like having my sister. We just chatted all the time. She was just a delight.
Yeah, I think they're best friends. Especially when they're both in crisis, or going through something, or oh dang, I found this recipe that I think is really good. It's just sharing that.
When people arrive in this country, the Lutheran Community Services tries to find apartments, but the apartments aren't always ready at the time they get here, because it's kind of last minute. So they said,
there we were.
Yeah, we could house somebody temporarily.
See, these are the kind of stories that makes our work so meaningful. Our partner, LIRS, incredible. It's very strong. Many people that I have worked over the years have been so wonderful, so committed and dedicated to this work.
They felt like my sons, my sister. It's time to get started in a new life. We learned from them, they learned from us, I guess. We just had a great time.
She'd tell me she was thinking about getting a master's of counseling at the university because as an employee, she could go to the counseling program for free. So I was encouraging her to do that. But meanwhile, Pastor Jan seemed to know something I didn't know, that he would be having conversations about her call to ministry.
Filled with gratitude for just the opportunity to be with her on this journey because of what I experienced personally from her. Her natural communication gifts and her ability to be open and so interested in people and welcoming of people. She is really, really gifted in what I would call the whole field of like pastoral care and counseling. She has a real wisdom for her age and an ability to both listen to people and reflect back to people in lots of ways. I'm experiencing that in our conversations, and I see that within her too.
I was going on pastoral care visits, and so I went over to Herman's place. And he was just the most warm person that I've ever met. He was just like super welcoming.
From the very beginning, and there's something about your presence, your manner, or something that just kind of ushered me into the wider world, like it was more a part of the big, the universal body of Christ, you know? It was kind of empowering for me.
Just imagine how it feels to see Emillie standing now in our church with a collar and a cassock on. That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. I thank God for that.
She was preaching on Jacob in the Old Testament. So Jacob had been on the run and crossing this river, and they were filming it by a river, I remember, and Emillie was preaching. And when she was done with the sermon, Joe and I looked at each other and just said, wow. I mean, she hadn't even had hardly any classes at school yet.
Even with those fears and with all of our past, kind of like Jacob's weirdness and all of the craziness of our lives and the things that we think define who we are, stop us from seeing who God calls us. You know, that God calls us beloved, that we're loved and held and just, you know, embraced by God, even though we're like messed up in so many ways. And just taking that one step, just crossing over that river and getting over that fear and saying, I'm going to go into this and see what God is calling me into. When people say Seattle is the city of rain, they're really not joking. Like there are days it rains from morning to evening and you wake up the next day and it's still raining. Like it's just non-stop, constant rain. In the first 2 years, that was really, really hard. I love Washington. It's calm. I'm not a person that loves the city a lot. Feels comfortable for me to be myself, to go out.
I mean, obviously anybody that comes as a refugee has left everything behind. To witness somebody or to just know somebody who has experienced that kind of pain and suffering, yet is so loving, but willing to speak that and share that. I just think that's important.
I've always wanted to have home. I haven't fully found a place that I personally call home outside of my mom. I feel like I'm slowly getting there. I have a lot of, you know, like Kathleen and Joe have become part of our family, you know. Hope I can create a home here like that.